Today, for those of you that are joining us here, wanted to talk to Woody about it. Audit Protection Program, plan that we do here at Parmelis for our clients, why people do it, a little bit about audits, why people get audited. But yeah, I just want to kind of start off with the overview of what our Audit Protection Program is. So the way that our Audit Protection Program works, and Woody's been a part of this for a couple of years now, is if you get a sales tax audit, workers' comp audit, and any sort of income tax audit, we're here. Nothing you have to do. You send us the paperwork and you're done. When we talk about audits, that doesn't mean, hey, we're coming to your shop. Hey, we're looking through all your books. Most of the time, it's not that involved, right? A lot of times you just get notices and you have to call and you have to deal with the IRS. What our Audit Protection Program says, hey, instead of you taking out a time out of your day, just be done with it. Forward that over. You've already paid for this service. We take the rest from there. I know, Woody, and I'll let you speak here in a second. I know that we've done at least a couple workers' comp audits, right? They'll send you out and saying, hey, we're now usually right about this time, right? Summertime is when they do this, June through May. I want to see all your payroll reports. I want to see who you paid, how much overtime, what their classification is. It's not rocket science to fill out, but it takes some time. You got to pull the reports on it. And a lot of people just don't like dealing with it. Same thing with sales tax, same thing with the IRS. A lot of times it's just getting them a bunch of reports, having to talk to these people. And a lot of people just get nervous about talking with these agencies. And like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Should I give them this? Should I not give them that? And even for our clients that are not on audit protection, we still handle those services, but we assist you. Hey, Woody, give them this, this, and this. But for the audit protection services, off your lap, not something that you have to worry about. So I guess, Woody, just what was your biggest thing? What's the biggest positive for you about being on this?
Well, peace of mind and security that when something weird comes in the mail, I can just scan it, send it to you all, and you all figure it out. Because we've done that multiple times.
Yeah.
The little city that I'm in started at a 0.5% tax that gets done really weird. And it's part of everybody's paycheck, and the employee's got to pay 0.5%. We've got to pay 0.5%. It was extremely complicated. I just sent it over to you all and you all fixed it.
Yeah. And like you said, your late entrance on here was actually kind of perfect because, none of this stuff, like I said, is very complicated, but it just takes time. And I feel like that there's no small business owner out there that says, you know what, I just have a ton of free time to deal with this kind of stuff.
I disagree. There's some people that do. There's some people that are smart enough to focus on all that stuff and good enough to attract all the right employees to do everything else. In the automotive business, I don't know many of us that have gotten to that point. We're all working towards that. In this business, it's the paperwork is the kryptonite for sure.
Yeah. And really, a lot of people get concerned about the IRS. Oh, hey, IRS is going to come in here. They're going to look at my numbers. They're going to audit me. They're going to ask for substantiating documentation. Realistically, a true IRS audit is very rare. We're an accounting firm, and it's even rare for us to see with our shops. But what is extremely common is workers' comp. You're going to get audited every single year, no matter who you are. Guaranteed, right? So right off the bat, you're going to use that feature of it. And then sales tax. Sales tax is the number one audit that we see. For every one IRS audit, we probably see 50 sales tax audits. It's extremely common. And Woody, like you and I were talking about before, I only think that sales tax audits are going to become more and more common because all these states are broke. They're looking for money. And you're the prime example of why of where they're going to go after. Hey, you know what? We need to drum up some money. Let's go look at all Woody's stuff and see if he owes us any cash. It's scary for a lot of people.
If they ask, 1,000 small businesses like us, most of us don't have something to fight them, but we have you.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right on this because sales tax audits, you're guilty until you can prove yourself innocent. And I've seen this time and time again. A sales tax auditor coming in and saying, hey, what do you owe me $60,000? You know that you do everything by the book and you're saying, there's no way I owe this. Well, unless you give us documentation that proves otherwise, you owe us $60,000. And that puts people in a really bad spot. And sometimes you have to be able to kind of know what to give them and know what not to give them, right? There's such thing as giving these people too much information and making their life too easy. And again, we can coach some people on stuff like that, but a lot of times people just don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to talk to the state. I don't want to talk to the county, and I definitely don't want to talk to the feds. Now, as far as getting audited and stuff like that, Woody, you've been through a couple. What do you think that the biggest reason is why people get audited?
if you're asking me, I would say sloppy paperwork or some sort of red flags. But again, that's your business, not mine. So let me hear it.
You're exactly right. The big thing, especially on the IRS side of it, is red flags. Hey, do you have a business that does $500,000 a year and you deducted $85,000 in travel? That's going to be a red flag. Now, the IRS is a bit more sophisticated than other state and counties because the IRS, the first line of defense for them is computer systems. All of these returns that get filed get put into a computer system, and then randomly they get pulled out of that computer system and say, hey, why did Simpsonville Auto deduct $85,000? Now that goes onto someone's desk and that person actually looks at this and says, you know what? We're going to go pay Mr. Howard a visit and see what's going on here. Generally, most IRS stuff is done by something that it looks out of whack, you've misreported something, or something caused an issue. Every once in a while, it's completely random, but generally there's a reason on it. Sales tax is the exact opposite. Sales tax, what usually happens is these counties or cities or states, depending on where you are, will go down through an initiative to say, hey, here's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at this industry in this specific part of the state. A couple of years ago in southeastern Pennsylvania, they decided that auto repair shops do not like to report sales tax. And they sent a notice to almost every single one of our clients around there. And we're seeing this more and more in this industry because while you and everyone else listening to this might be doing their sales tax correctly, there's a lot of people that aren't doing their sales tax correctly. And now you're being targeted because of that. The big thing on the sales tax side of things that I like to tell a lot of people is every once in a while I get a question, Hunt, should I be charging sales tax on this? Should I not be charging sales tax on that? What I always tell people is if you think that you might need to charge sales tax, go ahead and charge that to the customer, right? Because if something were to happen and you get audited, I can't go back and say, hey, Woody, I should have charged you sales tax. I didn't. Now I'm getting audited. You pay me. No, that's now my responsibility. And so if there's ever kind of that gray area, charge it, bill it to the customer. It's not your money. It's not, it's going to go to the state anyways. There's no downside to that. Now, Woody, you were shaking your head. Is this something that you already do?
Yeah. In the state of Kentucky, they started July of 2018 doing tax on labor, but it's all weird with mechanic shops because if there's a part associated with the labor, we charge tax on the labor. Mm-hmm. If there's not a part associated with the labor, then we don't charge tax on the labor. So we just simplified it, and all the CAM jobs with alignments, rotating balances, things that we're going to do without tax, we just added some of them, we added some kind of part on them there. And then under the CAM jobs, we actually strip the tax off of it. I mean, overall, there's not much we do that doesn't have a part. I mean, the oil change, got the oil filter, everything else, and most jobs do. But every once in a while we do, like an alignment doesn't really require any parts on that line item. So our CAM job doesn't have sales tax on it. But I say when in doubt, just charge for it.
Yeah, exactly right. And one of the good points that you brought up there, Woody, is like what you mentioned, repair shops are a little bit weird. Right? Because if you look at sales tax, and most states have this written the exact same way, they say, all right, if you're doing labor, you need to tax it this way. If you're doing parts, you need to tax it this way. But the tricky thing for the repair shop is it's a mixed service industry, meaning that everything is getting a mixture of labor and parts. And that's where some of this stuff gets a little bit tricky and a little bit weird. Now, one of the things about that too is, if you're looking at this and you're saying, all right, hey, do I fall into this category? Do I not fall into this category? It doesn't necessarily mean how you interpret this. It's how this auditor interprets this. And I've seen this time and time again where, just like you said, Woody, hey, that rotate and balance has no parts on it. Could an auditor come in and say, well, hey, you know what? We think that you're putting parts on this and you're trying to avoid this by only calling this labor. And that is an issue for states that are only charging it on parts and, exempt from labor. But, like you said, it changed in 2018 where they're starting to try and get labor because they know people are playing these games on it. What we're seeing in a lot of states is, again, like I mentioned before, these states are looking for money. I would say in 5 to 10 years time, every single state's going to be charging on parts and labor just because they're like, what's the downside to it? Right? We're passing this all along to consumers. Now, as a quick aside on here, like what you talked about there, Woody, it's sometimes a full-time job just to keep up some of these regulations, right? You're collecting a tax that the state has come up with and paying it to them under their rules. and they're changing this stuff all the time on this. And so how are you keeping up to date on that? Are they sending notices out to you? Are you, just making sure to spot check stuff or what?
I'm currently not doing anything. Maybe I should. If we do get any kind of notice, we're going to send it over to you, and hopefully y'all will figure it out. But good point. I should probably look into that.
Yeah. And the big thing on that too is, doing some spot checks on it, because a lot of times, what shop management software do you use, Woody?
We use ShopBoss.
And do you guys ever take a look at the tickets to make sure that stuff is getting taxed correctly on there? Or do you analyzing tickets and stuff like that?
Yeah, we actually had an issue not long ago. So we pay a report in order to do the sales tax every month. We just pay a report to see what we're supposed to do. And then she does the online calculator, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And we kept coming, the report was wrong every single time. We figured out that one of the aftermarket warranty companies that we deal with, they've got it all worked out to where they only pay the sales tax on the contract portion of it. So we figured out that when we're docking the sales tax off of that ticket to make it come out right for the customer, that it was throwing our report off. So then we now have to just inform the customer, hey, your aftermarket warranty contract will only pay X amount of dollars in tax on your actual. They figure it on the remainder of the contract somehow, and they just come up with a number of sales tax, and then the remainder of the sales tax, which when it's an engine or a transmission or something, is a few $100s.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden that we've got to have that conversation with the customer. We've run into that before. Since we figured that out, we stopped moving the sales tax number around and just informing the customer they have to pay that portion as well.
No, I mean, that's exactly what I was looking there, Woody, because a lot of times we set up our shop management software so that it pumps out exactly what we think it should be doing. But unless you're taking random spot checks, I mean, you should be doing spot checks on invoices anyways. Hey, did we price that correctly? Did we have everything on there? Is it laid out in, an accurate format? And also little intricacies like that, because a lot of times those issues don't come up until you have a sales tax audit, right? Of, hey, why didn't you collect all the sales tax on that? And you look at it and you're like, oh, that is weird. And that's when you find out, well, that aftermarket warranty place paid $150 of the $200 of sales tax. We didn't collect the rest of it. So now that's money out of Woody's pocket. Now, what about when you were talking about the aftermarket warranties and stuff like that? Are you, because this comes up every once in a while, about charging sales tax. Have you ever had people come back and argue of saying, hey, for whatever reason, I'm exempt from sales tax? And what's your philosophy on honoring that request?
I'm in a pretty rural area. And for years here in Kentucky, you go to the local tractor supply place or whatever, and you could put in your phone number and they would just put you as tax exempt. And then of course, all the farmers just everything.
Wait, all you needed was a phone number. And then you're like, you know what, if you got a phone number, you must be a high level.
For years, the tractor supply place, I used to watch them do it. My aunt and uncle did it. And just everything you're buying there is tax exempt, of course, because you have a farm. So that went on for years. So back then I would have farmers come in and say, well, this is my farm truck, so here's my phone number. I don't have to pay tax. I had to make a couple phone calls and like, no, actually, that's not how that works. And I lost a few clients because they were like, well, if you're not going to do it, then I'm just going to take it to such and such because they've always done it. I'm like, well, goodbye, because I'm going to charge sales tax.
Yeah. And again, right, because at the end of the day, if you got caught on that, would you be going back to those farmers to collect the money, or would that be money out of Woody's pocket?
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Right. And that question comes up all the time because, might not be as creative as, hey, if you have a phone number, you have a farm on it. But I see questions all the time of saying, well, hey, this person says that they do not have to pay sales tax. And the blanket statement is 99.9% of the time, that person has to pay sales tax on it.
I think the only ones we don't charge it on is we work on a church's vehicles.
Yep. Nonprofits.
And we got their certificate on file, and then it's all good.
That's the big thing here, is having that certificate on file there too, right? Because even if you come and you agree, hey, I did this for a charitable organization, I do a church. I've seen people that have had issues because they came back and they say, well, hey, you did this for a charitable organization, you did this for a church, but how did you verify? Where's their sales tax exemption form? And if you don't have that, they could not even argue the fact that, they are exempt from sales tax. If you don't have that exemption form, they don't care. You didn't do it correctly. So it's just little stuff like that.
I can see that. Well, it's no different than when I'm set up with a new parts vendor. They have to have it, or they're going to charge me tax. So we've got one at the ready and just send it over to them.
Yeah. And also the thing is here is you got to look from the state or county's point of view. Who's paying me sales tax, right? Because if you bought parts and you did not pay sales tax on that, you're now selling that to a customer, which is why we're charging sales tax to them. If they're exempt from sales tax, or they're telling you they're exempt from sales tax, who are they then turning around and paying sales tax? So the only time that you can usually get exempt from sales tax is just like most shops. You're a reseller. Hey, I'm buying it. I'm turning around, I'm selling it to someone else, and I'm charging them sales tax. If that's the end user, unless they're a charity, charge them sales tax and be done with it. Any other words of wisdom that you've learned over the years about these audits, or, what has been an issue? What have you been caught about, Woody?
We've got a current one going on right now that I think falls under that program that I'm with you all, where we got some weird, suspicious email from QuickBooks of all places saying that there's some kind of third party involved in our QuickBooks and we can't figure out what it is. And you all are working real hard to figure out what that is. Yeah, I think it's just scammy, and what we've got the email a couple of times now, and I think Sean was talking to Jordan about it now in the email.
Yeah, and these scamming emails, the phishing emails that we've seen, in the past, it wasn't that bad because they were so poorly written. It's so obvious. You're like, all right, this is someone just trying to steal my information. Now they've learned how to use, Google Translate pretty well, and the emails can come over and look pretty legitimate. And I've had a couple of people get burned by this because they read this stuff too quick. What was the big thing that you were like, hey, this is not probably something I should be doing?
Well, she's dealing with it. And basically what she said was, my wife is what I'm talking about, that does all the bookkeeping. She said, I want to make sure Parmelis is handling this because QuickBooks actually needs some of this information. I don't want to give them too much information if they're a scam, and we'd rather just have you all deal with it.
Yeah. So, and the big thing on that one too, Woody, is, communication, right? Even if we come back and say, hey, Woody, it's 100% legitimate, go ahead and do it. How peace of mind being like, all right, I'm giving it to the right source. And I tell people, even if you're on an audit protection, you're not on an audit protection, what you're paying us for, or if you're not a client of ours and you're listening to this, what you're paying your accountant for is to be able to ask questions and stuff like that. I mean, how many times, just like we were talking this morning, Woody, about cash, right? Like, hey, Hunt, what do you think about this? Have you heard other people doing this?
Yeah. I stirred up a mess on that cashless talk on the ATI owners group, but yeah, and something just popped in my head. I'm always advising my customers they should have full coverage insurance here in Kentucky because we're a no-fault state. Mm-hmm. So basically, if somebody runs into the side of you and they don't have insurance, they get a ticket. Maybe they got a warrant out for their arrest. They spend a night in jail. And this car that you're counting on getting back and forth to work, that of course you only had liability on it because it's not worth much. Mm-hmm. Now it's just totaled and they got a ticket and you're just stuck with it. So pretty sure the government considers themselves no fault. And this is just like having full coverage insurance.
You're exactly right. I'm going to start printing that out in the future, right? We call it our audit protection package, but that's really what it is. It's insurance, right? I'm not protecting you from ever getting audited. We're saying, hey, if something is going to happen, we're here to stand behind it and make sure it's right. Now, if you were stealing sales tax money, we're going to try our best to lower that down as much as possible. I can't get rid of it, right? I can't undo the past on it, but at least take this stuff off your plate, not have to deal with these people, is what we do.
And you all always advise that we don't steal sales tax and steal anything else.
So you can steal whatever you want. Don't mess with sales tax. Don't mess with payroll tax. I mean, I've had in the last year, I've had 2 people have their bank accounts frozen, their doors chained shut, and I've had one person spend some time in jail because of sales tax. These people do not play around. They do not. As far as they're concerned, Woody has a shop to collect us sales tax money. As soon as Woody's shop stops giving me sales tax money, then as far as we're concerned, there's no reason for him to be in business, and they will shut you down in a heartbeat. Some states are worse than others too. Kentucky's not a bad one. If you're in Florida, they don't play around in Florida. If you're in Texas, they don't play around in Texas. Those are the two probably worst places to mess with it. Not that there's anywhere really good to mess with sales tax. They get a little bit finicky on that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I think that they should do is it's like, hey, Woody, you're now working for the state. You're collecting their sales tax money. You're paying it to them. I think that there's an argument that, people should get paid for doing that. But I've tried to bring that up with people before. And
if you
really want to hear it.
I don't know if it works everywhere, but if you fill it out on time and everything, they do give you a little discount. So I guess you could consider that your wage.
Yeah. What does Kentucky give you for your discount?
I think it's like 2%.
Yeah. They give you a little bit, right?
Yeah. I think, so I guess that would be their rebuttal would be, we are paid.
Shauna might disagree with that hourly rate, comparing how much time she spends with sales tax and filing and paying compared to the discount that you get, right?
Definitely.
Cool. Well, awesome, Woody. I want to thank you for joining me. I know taking time out of your day, you got a crazy day and I appreciate it. Anything else that you want to mention? Any words of wisdom for the people listening or anything like that?
My only words of wisdom is ever since I've been paying Parmelis on a monthly fee, I have more money in my bank accounts.
Love it. So. And you've been paying us a long time. Woody's, it's fun fact for everyone listening. Woody was one of my first clients. Woody's been with Parmelis pretty much as long as I've been at Parmelis. So both of us, I had longer hair, he had more hair, but here we are now, right?
That's right.
Awesome, Woody. I appreciate you on here today. Let you get back to it.
All right. Take care, Hunt.
All right. See ya. So want to thank everyone for joining me. Hopefully that was insightful for everyone. Stay safe. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we will talk with you all soon.